I said since I stepped foot here in All Elite Wrestling that I was going to wrestle and give you my all until the wheels fell off. Well, I got good news and I got bad news. Which one you want first?
CM Punk won the AEW World Championship at Double or Nothing, and then 3 days later, broke his foot, required surgery, was out of action for months.
That being said, let's talk about this title. Let's talk about being AEW World Champion.
We underestimate CM Punk a lot. He's one of the great minds. He knows the business.
There is a long laundry list of talent in the back that could fill my shoes. They could be champion. I'm talking Bryan Danielson. I'm talking Jon Moxley.
During the pandemic, during the Jacksonville era of no crowds and uncertainty and fear, Jon Moxley wore the AEW World Championship. He put this company on his back, and he carried us through the pandemic. He saw us through to the other side.
I'm not just the heart and soul of AEW. I'm the heart and soul of this business.
Jon Moxley right now may be the best ever.
I think Mox, he stays in that mental lane of having that drive and remembers how hard it was to make it to this level and all the success he's had, just like Punk.
Both guys are so much alike, and they're very proud. They're very intense.
I have faced a rogues gallery, a who's who of the baddest men in this industry. The kind of guys that give you nightmares the night before a match. And CM Punk ain't one of them.
This was the summer of Punk that never was. This became the summer of Jon Moxley once again.
This is your AEW All Out betting preview here on the Lock Betting Podcast. You can follow Lock Betting on Twitter at LockBettingCom. That's at LockBettingCom. I'm flying solo today. Couldn't get it together with Cav on this Sunday, so I'm going to fly through the key matches that I want to cover here on this show. And if you want to get my official card, it will be available over at lockbetting.com, or you can get it on the Combat Pack over at thedirtysheets.com. On the Combat Pack, that's just UFC and WWE picks. But if you want all of my sports picks, head over to lockbetting.com. That is the service that has provided clients with 111 months in a row of transparent track profit, having just secured a profit for the month of August. We begin with the main event here as Jon Moxley now defends the title against CM Punk. But CM Punk is the favourite to regain it. Not a very, very short favourite like I was expecting. I was expecting these lines to come out, and the way the story's been told, I would have thought Punk would have been somewhere between minus 400 and minus 500. He's the 4-7 favourite, so that's under minus 200 with Moxley available at 5-4. I don't know where this story goes if CM Punk fails. I mean, I guess you could extend the injury thing. If he came back too soon in the last match, it's only been a couple of weeks later, it would still probably be too soon. So you could really ham up that injury and go for a longer rehab period and then have a real redemption story. But that would mean you're paying a guy a ton of money to sit out on the sidelines for a storyline for the sake of making it more believable. So I don't see that happening. I think this was always supposed to be Punk unifying in Chicago, and I think they came up with this idea to make it more interesting. It has worked. I think it is more interesting, and also this is a way to get 3 matches out of it, because I'm not sure who I'm interested in seeing Punk face after this. Yeah, he could go and face a load of guys he's faced in WWE. There could be money and interest in doing the Bryan Danielson thing again, but ultimately I do think that they'll do a 3rd match with Moxley after this. Maybe then move on to Bryan Danielson. Maybe they can heat up Christian Page. Maybe there's a rematch for Hangman. But ultimately, you want to get to MJF again. You want to bring MJF back into this company. I'm not believing for 1 second that whole thing isn't a work. So I think the end goal is at some point for MJF to be the next champion after Punk. I can't see who else it would be on this roster at the moment. Wardlow's doing his thing with the other titles. So yeah, it's not a great time in AEW. The storylines have become very muddy, and at the same time we're hearing about backstage unrest. So whereas this Punk title reign is supposed to be dream match after dream match, that didn't happen because he got injured. And you're starting out with Moxley, and yeah, you can get to Danielson, and you can do the Hangman Page rematch, and then you can do even the Omega match before you possibly do something with MJF. And I don't know that they're going back to MJF. I just think it will be criminal if he had that big promo and has all this interest in him, and you don't give him this world championship while he's red hot at some point in the next 12 to 18 months. But that's just my opinion. At the moment, I just feel that from watching the television that you've tied yourself into a corner where CM Punk has to win tonight in Chicago. But it does concern me a little bit that this line has been put out, and in the last 2 days I haven't really seen too much movement on it. Sometimes you get some insider trading where it has moved the line, but I'm just going to overlook that. I'm not going to be put off this because Punk opened up at 4-7, which is great value, and didn't move to minus 300. I still feel from years of watching wrestling that CM Punk will win this match, and that is going to be my selection here for this one. Up next, we look at the match between Bryan Danielson and Chris Jericho, and pretty much the same odds here. Bryan Danielson is a slightly shorter favourite at 8-15, with Jericho at 11-8. This is very difficult because these are two guys who are obviously utter legends, complete legends in the business, coming up against each other. We haven't seen this match too often, and they've mainly been known over the last 2-3 years for putting over younger guys. Danielson did a lot of jobs on his way out of the WWE, and has done a few jobs in AEW as well. And Jericho the same. He did jobs on the way out of WWE and has lost to loads of people in AEW. Some he probably shouldn't have lost to, like Eddie Kingston. And I know a lot of guys will be critical of that comment, but with me, I just don't see it. I just don't see the whole Eddie Kingston thing. He's supposed to be this great talker. I don't think he is. It's okay, but if he is this great talker, there are 4 or 5 other fundamentals in the business. One of them is your physique. One of them is the actual matches that you have, and I don't see any star quality in relation to Eddie Kingston. So I don't think that was a job that Jericho needed to do. But ultimately, these two guys don't have an issue with it, and now they come together, and it's very hard to decide who's going to win, who needs to win more. Does Jericho need it because he just lost a high-profile world title match to Jon Moxley, or is it Bryan that needs it more at this point because there has been some criticism regarding how he's been booked, from the 1-hour draw with Kenny Omega to strangely turning heel temporarily for the feud with Hangman Page, losing to Hangman Page, and then Hangman Page soon after that went and dropped the title anyway. Then Bryan ended up in the Blackpool Combat Club. He's done a job for Danny Garcia. He went 50-50 with him the last time they faced as well. So a lot of criticism towards the booking of Daniel Bryan so far, or Bryan Danielson. So maybe he needs the win. Obviously, this whole Danny Garcia thing is going to determine who comes out on top. Is it a big swerve from the part of the sports entertainers? Is it going to be a big swerve that Bryan is his idol and whatnot, and then he swerves him and then they continue that program? Or is he going to join the Blackpool Combat Club and ditch Chris Jericho? That's ultimately all you need to decide. What way is this going to go? Is it a big swerve, or is it going to be Daniel Garcia going with Daniel Bryan? I would go with him joining the Blackpool Combat Club. Although I did see a picture of the Blackpool Combat Club the other day, and it was one where they all had the titles, and Daniel Bryan was the only one without a belt. Obviously, that could change tonight with Jon Moxley losing the AEW title as well, and obviously that could just be a temporary image that was just put out at the time. I don't think there's any future plans for Bryan to go and win one of the other many belts that there are in AEW to make that photo complete, or for him and Daniel Garcia to perhaps go for the tag titles or anything like that to add to it. I don't know. I don't know how AEW book. I don't know how they think. I know who they book for, which is the wrong people. It's Dave Meltzer and all the marks who buy the Wrestling Observer and read everything and watch every type of wrestling that there is. They're probably watching NXT right now. Well, if you book for that small group of people, you won't expand, and they haven't really had any expansion, despite the fact that they have signed name after name after name after name and still draw the same number. So ultimately, all you did is that any profits that you did have, and AEW haven't really ever shown any profits annually, you just destroyed that. You destroyed all of your TV money by spending it on wrestlers who didn't move the needle. And I don't think that could particularly be aimed at the wrestlers. I don't think you can point a finger at Miro or Malachi Black or Bryan Danielson or anybody and say, hey, you failed here. I think ultimately nobody has been booked in a way where it was going to draw in a new audience. I mean, if you look at Adam Cole, he was just simply put back into the group that we saw him in NXT. And the Undisputed Era had actually got relatively stale by the time that they finished. And Adam Cole needed to do something new, whether it be go to AEW and do something new or move up to the main roster in WWE. Now that Triple H is there, you can bet your ass that he is looking to get back in some of his NXT favorites. He couldn't wait to get Cross back in. And I'm sure Adam Cole is high up on the list and is probably at this point thinking about his options and wondering how long he has to run in AEW. But at the same time, he has previously said that one of the reasons he moved there was to spend more time with his friends and his girlfriend, Dr. Britt Baker. So I don't think she's going anywhere. I don't think she's going to be booked anywhere near as strongly when she goes to WWE. When you look at the female talent in AEW and the female talent in WWE, it's not really comparable. WWE is way ahead. So Britt Baker going from AEW, where she's the big fish in a small pond, she would just be another girl in the WWE and doesn't have the star power, in my opinion, of a Becky, a Charlotte, a Bianca Belair, even a Bayley. So yeah, ultimately that would be a bad move for her. So if Adam Cole goes over there, those guys would be split. But back to my point, nobody has been booked perfectly. Perfect booking is hard, but I think it's difficult to even make a case for anybody being booked well. And that's why this show continues to stay where it's at. I mean, the pay-per-views are good. I've no doubt that tonight's show is going to be a decent watch. But ultimately, if I run through this card entirely, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 matches I could cover, I'm pretty sure that I could go 11-3 at the worst, and that's probably too much for a major pay-per-view, which kind of says where AEW are at. I'll move on to the women's title match because we mentioned the women's division just then. These are considered the top 4 women in the division, and this is for the interim title. I hate interim titles. I know Thunder Rosa is injured, but I understood it with the CM Punk thing, but this is just Thunder Rosa. She could have done a match where she dropped the title, a quick 3-4 minute match. They could have done an angle where she had to relinquish the belt and they put it up in this match. But this whole interim thing where she comes in and then you need to unify the belts. So it seems you've just done that with the men. You shouldn't be doing it with the women as well. This isn't UFC, and if you're trying to be UFC and you're going down this route of where you want to make it feel more real, well, then you probably should have listened to Cody Rhodes a few years back, and he wouldn't have left you for the WWE, because there's been so much goofy shit in this promotion, which is something that Cody Rhodes is very much against and spoke about it in press conferences in the lead up to AEW in terms of how they were going to compete and how they were going to be different to WWE. And we saw so much goofy shit, whilst at the same time they're preaching that they're going to be different in terms of making themselves feel like a real sport. Well, the unification, the interim stuff and the unification of belts is pretty much as close as they've been in the last 12 months to looking anything like a real sport. There's pretty much interference in every single one of the AEW matches. Yeah, they've stayed true to themselves with one small thing in terms of limiting the DQs, but ultimately, if you want to get out of finishes by having so much interference, on every single episode of Dynamite or on every single pay-per-view, it kind of takes away from the whole point. In this particular match, Toni Storm is the 4-5 favourite to win the title. Dr. Britt Baker here is available at 11-4. It's 7-2 on Jamie Hayter, and it's 12-1 here on Shida. I think it's just between Baker and Storm. I think you can go into the match with Thunder Rosa with either one of those two, but I think it's more likely to be Storm. I think that was going to be the match anyway. It's an easy point to pick up from. Storm and Baker can feud for the title temporarily. Even Jamie Hayter can get a title feud there. I think Shida is correctly priced out. I don't see her getting involved in the picture. And I think the right woman is favourite here. I'd be taking Toni Storm at 4-5, minus 125 to win this one. The other women's championship, the TBS championship, this is Jade Cargill finally going up against Athena. Cargill is the wide favourite at 1-5, with Athena here at 7-2. This is a no-brainer. You could have offered a line of 1-20 on Jade Cargill, and it still would have been a respectable parlay piece, because this is just free money. Jade Cargill wins this match. It'll be a competitive match. I think they're going to give Athena a lot as they've built to this quite slowly. But yeah, I think Jade Cargill remains undefeated. It's just interesting to see who beats her, because the longer she has this belt, the TBS belt, as far as importance goes, suddenly becomes more important than the actual women's title. In fact, I already think we're at that point. It's very weird. It reminds me of, to a much lower scale, of course, but it reminds me of many WrestleManias I went to where the streak of The Undertaker became more important than winning the WWE title. And this kind of feels like that. This feels like the wrong belt is more important. It feels like beating Jade Cargill and ending the streak, which subsequently wins you the TBS championship, which is almost a secondary footnote now when it comes to facing Jade. Yeah, you'll get her belt, but you'll also get the accolade of beating Jade Cargill first. That's how I relate it to the streak. As I said, on a much lower scale, I'm not comparing it in terms of being as big of a feat as beating the streak at WrestleMania, by no means, because Jade has a lot to learn in terms of developing himself as a wrestler, and obviously isn't at the status of The Undertaker, but it is a big deal. And when you're looking at the way that the other women's belt is booked, it becomes an even bigger deal, because that one doesn't seem important at all. I mean, Thunder Rosa has been very, very poorly booked as the women's champion, and that's why I don't really see why they did the interim thing for her. An interesting match here between Jungle Boy and Christian Cage. For me, this has had the best build-up. This has been one of the best builds of the year, not just in AEW, but also including WWE. This is something that they have got right, and I wonder if it's because Christian Cage was influential on his own storyline. We know that Edge has some creative power over there. The only reason I'm questioning it in terms of Christian Cage is because he allowed himself to manage his team and just waste some good months of his career for 5-6 months and without really doing anything. And when you're at his age and you've already retired and then come out of retirement because you realise that you are physically able to do this still, there's going to be a shelf life on that. If someone's retired and they're coming back for one last run, I mean, that says it all in that very sentence, one last run. So he probably didn't want to waste all that time managing this team and hanging around with a dinosaur or a fake dinosaur. But ultimately, that's what he did. I don't think that would have been his own creative decision. But perhaps, you know, it's different in terms of what your overall creative is and how you chip into what you've been given. And this does have some fingerprints of a more experienced veteran like Christian getting involved in this. And that's probably why it has been better than most of the things on AEW at the moment. Jungle Boy is the favourite to get the win. He's available at 4-6, with Christian at 6-5 plus 120. I would lean Christian. His work has been so much better. Obviously, ultimately, Jungle Boy will need to go over here, but I think they can make that the level up win. I think Christian can get the win here. I think we need to see who Luchasaurus is actually aligned with, because he was oddly hanging around with Christian and then he quickly swerved and moved over to Jungle Boy. It wouldn't surprise me if that was the real swerve and he ends up back with Christian, because that made a lot more sense. It reminded me of the old Christian and Tomko days, and yeah, I think that made a lot of sense. And seeing as AEW love to copy a lot of old WWE stuff, you know that there's a very good chance that we could be moving back in that direction. We'll look at doing a couple of more matches here. We've got the Trios Championship match with the Elite taking on the Dark Order and Adam Page. The Elite here are available at 2-5, with the Dark Order and Hangman Page at 2-1. This was always set up for the Elite to win it. I think that's why Kenny Omega came back in that weird ring gear, because he was ready, because he needed to win these trios belts, and he obviously wasn't ready, otherwise he wouldn't be wearing that. But I think that because they needed to win it, and because they wanted to win it, and because this was set up for the Elite, I don't see them losing here tonight to the Dark Order and Adam Page. The Dark Order fucking sucks. Like, Adam Page shouldn't be going from the world title to teaming up with these goofs. I would be turning heel on these guys, because Adam Page needs something. It's almost like he was never the AEW champion at all. So I would be giving him the win here. I would be looking to turn him heel here, and getting him away from these guys in this match or soon after it. Last couple, let's do the match here between the House of Black taking on Darby Allin, Sting, and Miro. The House of Black are dead, which is crazy given the talent in that group. Buddy Murphy, when he was at WWE, and probably still one of the best wrestlers in the world. Aleister Black or Malachi Black had a ton of potential. The pops he was getting were insane. I felt bad for Cody, because that storyline was set up for them to go 1-1, and he did put Malachi Black over very, very strong on a couple of occasions before he got his win. So it was odd to see him boo to that extent, but that, I think, was down to the fact that they didn't want Cody Rhodes having another 50-50 feud. They didn't want Cody Rhodes having this thing where he fought from underneath and bled and then just won another feud at the end, a feud that went on for 3 or 4 months. The typical rinse repeat Cody Rhodes feud that we were getting. They saw something different in Malachi Black. Unfortunately, the Booker of the Year didn't see it, and Malachi Black did take that loss. And since then, he's done absolutely nothing. He's been stuck with these guys, and by putting them here together and thinking that they can take losses in this group, it just hurts all of them. I don't particularly think that Brody King deserves better. I don't think that he is the star of this group, but the other two certainly are. And I don't like Malachi Black. I've had personal run-ins with him on Twitter. I think the guy is a woke social justice warrior privately. I think his Instagram and the things he does on social media really let him down and kill his character, because there's still a little bit of kayfabe in me. But if you get that reaction and you do what you do when you go out there, he can wrestle. He has a good look. He had a great gimmick. He had great entrance, great music. He's got a good contract. Why is he in this position? Why do I feel absolutely certain that they will be losing this match here tonight to Miro, Sting, and Darby Allin? In fact, I think this would make up for a strong parlay piece here by adding this match to your parlays. The Casino Ladder match, this is, as per usual, a toss-up. The Joker is the 10-11 favourite, because I think there's speculation that will be MJF, that the Joker will be MJF, which essentially kills that story, because if he enters this match as the Joker and he cut that promo and did all that real stuff and took this time off to sell that he had a real issue with the company, and he comes in and wins a ladder match and gets a title shot, that's very, very wrestling. In fact, that's too wrestling, and it kind of undoes everything and makes the whole time off pointless. So I don't think I'm not saying the Joker won't win. I just don't think it will be MJF. Claudio is the second favourite here at 11-2. Ray Phoenix 6-1. Andrade 6-1. Wheeler Yuta 8-1. Rush 10-1. And everybody else is bigger than 20-1. I think the Joker will win this. but I just don't think the Joker will be MJF. And I think once people have that disappointment from it not being MJF, then you have to kind of compensate them by making this Joker somebody good and having him win the match. So that's your brief. Well, it's not brief, it's 25 minutes, but that is your AEW preview for tonight. As I said, I will be releasing my betting picks. You can get them over at lockbetting.com Patreon, or if you just want UFC and WWE, get the combat pack over at the dirtysheets.com Patreon page. That's it for me. Good luck with all your bets as always, and thanks for listening.